Hi and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and in this episode I'm going to fine sand and finish these two guitars and get them ready for final assembly. But first I have to do a final bit of carving. I have to do the comfort carve at the back of the guitar and blend in the edge of the body with the heel of the neck. Off camera I've already fine sanded both guitars, so you guys don't have to watch me sand for hours at end, or in YouTube hours, a couple of minutes. So I've did that off camera and there's just a couple of things I like to do before I can start applying my hard wax oil finish. And that's to make sure that the maple is nice and clean, especially the maple. I always have a feeling it dirties up real quick from just the oils, natural oils and stuff that's stuck on your hands. So I take a very fine sanding pad and just rub down the neck. It removes any residue, any dirt, and because this is very fine, I think this is the equivalent of 600 or 800 grit sandpaper, so you get a very nice and smooth neck. And yeah, I make sure not to touch it too much after I've cleaned the guitar. And then I'm going to mask off the fretboard just to protect it from the finish, and then it's time to start applying the hard wax oil finish. The guitars are finally ready to take the finish, and I'm going to use this hard wax oils by a company called Trelix, and this is a Dutch and Belgium brand. I know it's available in Belgium and here in the Netherlands. I don't know, and I don't think it's available anywhere else. But there's a company called Osmo that also sells a hard wax oil, and there might be some other brands out there that sell hard wax oils. And a hard wax oil is basically linseed and thang oil mixture and mixed in with some natural hard waxes. And one of the benefits, I think, of a hard wax oil in comparison to other oils is that it has a benefit of the oils penetrating deep into the wood, giving it a lot of protection. And due to the added hard waxes, it also builds up a slight layer of wax on top of the guitar. It fills the pores and gives it some additional protection against, again, moisture and even some wear resistance. And I'm going to use a different technique than I did on the last build. The last bit I used a roller and a rag to apply the finish, but now I'm going to use a foam brush. I saw this online with great results, and yeah, I'm going to try and apply a couple of very thin layers of hard wax oil over the next couple of days. The hard wax oil I'm using requires a curing time of about 16 hours in between coats, and then another 7 to 14 days to fully harden. So yeah, it will take a while for me in real time, but yeah, again, YouTube and the magic of video editing, I can put on some music, put this all in a time lapse for you, and yeah, enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions about my finishing process, let me know in the comment section down below. So hard wax oil is a very easy to apply finish. You can apply it almost any way you like. You can brush it on, use a roller, use a sponge, a piece of cloth, or even tissue paper. As long as you work in very thin layers and you make sure to wipe off any excess, it's a very easy to apply finish. However, it's also a very unforgiving finish. Hard wax oil highlights any mistake you make or any scratch you leave on your guitar body, and especially on the flamed maple on lighter wood types. It shows every little scratch left by one of your tools, or even if there's a bit of dirt or contamination on the maple, it shows up very, almost dirty like. So yeah, that's a thing to keep in mind when using hard wax oil. Make sure you sand your body to the best of your abilities and make sure you work as clean as you can, especially on the lighter wood types. There's also a big bonus in my opinion when it comes to using hard wax oil, and that's fixing your little mistakes. Hard wax oil is very easy to repair. You can just sand away your mistake or your damage and reapply 1 or 2 coats of hard wax oil, and then you're ready to go. I've fine sanded my body and the whole guitar for the 3rd time now, so this is going to be the 3rd layer of hard wax oil I'm going to apply to this guitar, and then I can let it cure for about 7 to 14 days before it's fully hardened, and I can polish it out and apply some microcrystalline wax. So the hard wax oil has fully dried. It's a couple of days later. It's not fully hardened. It will take another week for it to fully harden, but I can continue to work on these 2 guitars. And the next step I like to do is apply some shielding paint to the inside of the control cavities and the pickup cavities, of course. It's not really necessary on this guitar because it's going to have active humbuckers, so shielding paint isn't really required, but I like the finished look of having these black cavities, black pickup cavities, so it looks nice and professionally finished. And yeah, then why not use shielding paint and maybe have an added benefit from that as well. You might wonder why I apply my shielding paint or the black paint after finishing the entire body, and that's because of the risk of spills. If I spill a drop of the black shielding paint on top of the unfinished guitar body, for example, I have a black stain and I have to sand it out and such. And with the wood now sealed by the finish, if I manage to get a drop of shielding paint onto the guitar, I can just simply wipe it off and I'm done. So applying shielding paint is very straightforward. When you open the tin or the can, what is it called, a tin or a can? We call it a tin, roughly translated. Make sure you stir it very good, because all the particles that's inserted, graphite usually, that's in the paint will sink to the bottom. Just make sure you stir it real good. And then use just a small little brush and start painting. I like to do 2 layers, and there's a hour of drying time in between layers, so this afternoon I can do both guitars back to back, hopefully. So yeah, just start painting in the cavities. So, well, this just happened. When I was removing the masking tape, I didn't realize a drop of the shielding paint got on my hand, and when I touched the guitar, I stamped a little stain onto my guitar body. And yeah, well, this is the reason why I like to finish the guitar body before doing the shielding paint, because with a damp piece of tissue paper, I can now easily remove the stain, and I don't have to sand, I don't have to do anything to the finish, just clean it with a piece of damp paper and I'm done, and you can't see anything anymore. The cavities on these guitars are all nice and black now, and although I don't think shielding paint makes much of a difference for a guitar that's gonna have active humbuckers, I do think it makes a huge difference in the quality, look and feel of a guitar when you have nicely painted cavities. I think it makes all the difference. So when it only took me a couple of hours to do, so I'm very pleased once again. The next step is to apply some microcrystalline wax. I'm using the chestnut microcrystalline wax just to give this guitar an additional layer of protection. But before I go and apply the wax, I'm going to use an abrasive material, 1500 grit and 1200 grit. And it's not really sandpaper, it's from a brand called Carve, and apparently it's a Japanese abrasive material. It's more of a cloth than it is a paper, and it has a foam padding, backing you can use. And I'm going to look for any rough spots left by the hard wax oil where I didn't polish it out enough, and remove it with a 1500 grit abrasive. And if it's too rough, I switch over to 1200 and then go back with 1500. And there's an area I also have to address, and that's between the fretboard and the maple of the neck, because I've masked off the fretboard and the hard wax oil is a high building finish. There's a very fine line you can feel with your fingertips between the fretboard and the maple, and I'm going to use the abrasive to very gently polish away that line. And I have to be very careful not to overdo it and not to hit anything else, until I can no longer feel that transition, that sharp transition line left by the finish when it was touching the masking tape. So I'm going to do this for the entire guitar, and then I'm going to apply the microcrystalline wax using the instructions on the tin. I'll try and put a link to both the wax and the Carve abrasive in the description down below, so you can check it out for yourself. After applying the microcrystalline wax, you have to wait for about 20 minutes and then you can start wiping it off and polishing the guitar. I use a piece of cotton cloth, piece of a t-shirt, and this microfiber polishing pad. And this requires some elbow grease to remove all the wax and polish the guitar to a nice shine. Sometimes with the microcrystalline wax, and I don't know why this is, I'm left with little stripes and little rust spots from applying the wax. And it seems that no matter how hard I try to buff them out by hand, I can't get rid of them. It might be because it's too cold in the shed right now and the 20 minutes normal curing time might be too long and the microcrystalline wax has already fully hardened. But there's a solution. You can buff microcrystalline wax with a buffing wheel. I don't have a buffing wheel, but I have a random orbital sander with a buffing pad I can use and try to buff out those lines. So if you have access to a mechanical buffer, a sander with a buffing pad, a real carve buffer, or maybe even a stationary buffing wheel, you can use that as well. And what I like most about this finish is, although it isn't the easiest to do, you can keep working it until you're happy with the result. You can use different kind of buffing methods, and when you've gone too far, you just reapply some wax and try again. The finish on both guitars is done, and yeah, I hope this shows up on camera, but it really looks very good. Yeah, they're very nice, very shiny. It's a gloss to semi-gloss, I think, and yeah, I wish you could feel how smooth and how slick these guitars are at the moment. Yeah, I'm a bit proud of myself, to be honest. I'm not the best finisher out there. If you have any questions, like always, about my finishing process or the tools I've used, let me know in the comment section down below and I'll try to answer all your questions as soon as I can. And I'll also try and remember to add some links to some products and the tools I used on this finish. So if you're interested, go check out the video description to for some links. Yeah, I'm still waiting on some parts to arrive. I've ordered my parts as soon as I started these two guitars, so it's months ago, and some of them still haven't arrived. For example, the Fishman pickups. I'm still waiting on the pickups for these guitars. So they should arrive this week, so in next week's episode I can start the final assembly and get these guitars playable, at least one. So yeah, I hope to see you all there. And yeah, like always, if you like this video, please leave a like. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you're new to my channel, of course, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to get notified when I upload something new and you don't have to miss out on anything. If you want to support me, like I said, there are some links to some products and some tools I use in the video description down below. And there's also a link to my Teespring web store where you can get yourself a nice t-shirt or a coffee mug and support me even more. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Keep an eye out for next week's video, which will be the final assembly of at least one of these guitars, and I hope to see you all there. But until then, have a nice week.